small room. Welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope everyone was able to grab breakfast. There's coffee in the back. Feel free to pop up and grab some if you'd like. My name is Brittany Quick-Warner. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the President and CEO at the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce. And we are very excited to welcome you all this morning to our Eugene City Council Candidate Forum. In case you aren't up all night thinking about this like we are, we have a little election coming up here in a few weeks, and we have been incredibly grateful and honored to be involved in this conversation on behalf of our members. We take seriously the job and the role that we play to help educate folks, to help them understand not just the issues that are impacting our community and our business community, but the individuals who are so generous to step up with their time and to volunteer to serve us in office. So we're excited to learn more and meet these candidates here and have a few moments this morning to ask them some questions about their priorities and how they would show up and serve all of us in the community were they to be elected. I want to give a shout out to Brian Obie and Obie Companies for generously hosting us this morning. Yeah. Brian knows a thing or two about serving in office and understands the importance of this type of work, so he was very quick and gracious to say, yes, let's do it. Metro TV also, we want to thank them. They are live streaming this, and KVAL as well. So this is Kendall Bartley. She's going to be emceeing this morning. She comes to us from KVAL, and we're excited to have you and appreciate everything. So I will, without further ado, hand it off to her and get this thing started.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Honored to be here this morning. So Brittany had mentioned Metro TV is streaming this on Channel 21. It is also being live streamed, of course, on the Chamber's Facebook and YouTube pages. The forum today, Brittany kind of went over it, but the goal is obviously for our business community to really get an opportunity to hear directly from candidates seeking to represent you on the Eugene City Council. So today's discussion, we're going to cover a lot of different topics critical to a strong, vibrant local economy. That includes public safety, economic development, housing, homelessness, jobs, the economy, fiscal responsibility, as well as the regulatory environment. So there will be a series of questions that we will be asking, that I will be asking the candidates. Now, none of these candidates have seen these questions, so this is the first time that they will be hearing them. Then at 8:30, we will be taking questions from you, the audience. So if you look at your table, there should be a card there with some pens. If you'd like to ask a question, go ahead and write that down. We do ask that you only include questions that all of the candidates have a chance to answer, and then Tiffany will be going around. That's Tiffany. She's going to be going around picking up those questions. Our goal, of course, is to provide a fair, informative conversation that helps you better understand each candidate and their approach to governance, decision-making, and how they view the role of business in our community. So I will now introduce our candidates. We are joined today by John Borofsky. He's running for Ward 3. His opponent declined to participate today. Councilor Jennifer Yeh and her challenger Tom Stedman in Ward 4. Mike Clark, Ward 5, who has two other opponents who declined to participate today. Then in Ward 6, incumbent Councilor Greg Evans and challenger Ty Bruce Zimmerman, both joining us today. So please join me in welcoming them. So there's a few ground rules that we're going to go over for the forum. So the first rule, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. The responses will rotate to ensure fairness in speaking order. We ask that there are no direct rebuttals. And our timekeeper, Katie, so Katie, if you want to, she will be holding up a 30-second time cue and then let you know when your time is up. Before we do get to the questions, though, we would like to begin with opening statements. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and share why they are running for Eugene City Council. So we'll start with John.
Is this on? Okay, great. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is John Borofsky. I'm running for Ward 3. You may know me more as Johnny from Beppe and Johnny's Restaurant. I've lived in Ward 3 for 23 years with my wife, Connie. And had the business there for 28 years. Some of my experience that I think I can bring to the city council is I was on the city's budget committee for 7 years, the planning commission for 8 years, Fairmont Neighborhood Board for 23 years, and I'm currently the EWEB Commissioner for Ward 2 and Ward 3. Some of the things that I want to stress, and this is tough to do in 2 minutes, but is obviously housing and homelessness is an issue that's very important to our community. For me, housing and homelessness is all levels, not just low, total affordable housing. I want my employees to be able to live and work in Eugene and their children. Public safety is the second one. For me, public safety means all of our public realm. So people like me who have a door that we can lock at night, we're lucky to have that, but there's a lot of people in our community that aren't that lucky, and they need to be safe as well. And then the third priority for me is our city's finances. I've spent years studying our budget, and we have some challenges moving ahead of us, how to fund our services that we all expect: police, fire, libraries, parks, pools, all of those things. And that's going to be a challenge that I think we're going to see year after year. And I think my experience following the city's budget and being a small business owner will lend to that.
You guys can clap. Hi, I'm Jennifer Yeh. I'm the Eugene City Councilor for Ward 4, which is Northeast Eugene. Sorry, I'll put it closer. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Oregon, but I moved to Eugene to attend the University of Oregon. My husband and I came back to raise our family here in 2007, and that's really the part of my life where I got involved in my community. The first thing I did was I joined my neighborhood association, and then for over a decade in different positions, from being a member to being a chair to working on the Neighborhood Leaders Council, I was able to learn about my neighborhood and learn about my neighbors, advocate for them, and organize community service projects that made a difference in my community. And then in 2017, I was appointed to the City Council. It's been an exciting and fun and challenging journey, but I'm running for the re-election because I deeply care about my community. I work really hard to represent it as well as I can, and I continue to believe that local government has a unique opportunity to make positive impacts in people's day-to-day lives. We've made a lot of progress in Eugene. I'm proud to be a part of it, but we still have challenges ahead of us, and I am thankful to have relationships and built experience that I can bring to the table in order to make those decisions. And I'm looking forward to being a clear and consistent voice on council when we are setting priorities, when we are approving budgets, when we are making decisions that are going to have long impacts here in our community. So thank you so much.
My name is Tom Stedman. I've been Eugene resident since '78. I'm just going to get right to it. I think we're looking at a lot of problems coming up, and I think the biggest thing that's going to work for us is collaboration. Every job I've had since I got out of the service, I've done union representation, labor representation, and I've gotten to know that you just can't do it all on your own. You have to work with our partners in management and production. While I was at Weyerhaeuser, I was able to work an invitation to go to the timber conference that the Clintons put on. I came back and I just, for me it was a sham. It was an embarrassment. So I just went ahead and on my own, I projected out 2 months what I would like to see as a canvassing lobbying trip for union representatives back in DC. I put it all together, went back to my mill manager, Rich Hansen, back with 2 other union reps, and let's take some management reps back as well and tell them, we're not going to make it. And they agreed. They put me in touch with Weyerhaeuser PR people. I got a hold of several other workers and labor representatives, and I wanted management. Management pushed back, and they says, no, you're going to take the AOL representatives, Association of Oregon Loggers. So we put this package together. We got the other mill managers on board, and we went back. We had appointments with Panetta, McGinty, Robert Reich. I've got 3. And bottom line was we did pretty good. We came back, put together the next year's lobbying group of over 200 representatives from mills across the West Coast, Idaho, Washington, potash. But we also took back other management representatives. long story short, I was able to convince Secretary Glickman, Secretary of Glickman to come out. They believe that we could do everything in a mill.
Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be here with you this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Mike Clark, and I'm currently the counselor for Ward 5 in North Central Eugene. I've had that privilege for a couple of terms, and I'd like to continue to have it because I believe that there's work that we need to do. I came to Eugene initially in 1983 to attend the University of Oregon. And I'm one of those students that refused to leave afterwards. I stayed and opened a small business and got married and had a couple kids and raised my family here. And for me, that's the reason to do this, is that my kids need to be able to have the kind of home where they can stay and find a good job and live well. And I think that all of us deserve that. And I think that we need to do more work to create that opportunity for everyone in that kind of community. And I'd like to challenge every single person in the room. This is the most important piece of the campaign, I think, and John kind of touched on it. I believe that we need, for lack of a better way to say it, a cultural change in our community. We need to look at growth and economic progress as a way of life in our community. And it's going to take all of us changing our culture to that way of thinking for us to continue to afford the things that we rely on for city services. I believe our budget is currently unsustainable, and there are a number of priorities we need to make sure we can afford into the future. So thank you for the chance to talk with you this morning.
It's hard to follow Mike, but I'll give it a try. I'm Greg Evans. I am the city councilor for Ward 6, which is Northwest Eugene, and have been there since 2013. I've been in Eugene for the last 40 years. How I got here is a state secret. I will not reveal that. I do not want to get in trouble with my wife, so I'll keep my nose out of that one. But have been here for 40 years. This has been my home. This is where I've raised my family. This is where I built my career, 29 years in higher education at LCC and also at Lane ESD. Done a number of things in our community, including city council, been on the fair board, been on the LTD board, worked on the MX project for West Eugene, which we brought home successfully, and other pieces that I've worked on. I won't go through the whole list because then I'll use up all of my time. But I will say this, I am running for re-election. I'm running for re-election because there are things that I started on even before I got on city council in 2013 that I want to see come to fruition. One of them is the development of Highway 99 as we're moving forward with those developments, with new businesses that are coming in, and also with connecting the South Willamette Valley corridor. And so I'm going to stop there and hand it over to my erstwhile opponent, Ty.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to speak with you. My name is Ty Bruce Zimmerman. I'm running for City Council in Ward 6. I am both, Eugene is both my native and chosen home. I grew up here. My service in the city started volunteering for kids sports. with Greg, actually. We coached a baseball team together when I was in high school. And then I left after high school, and when it was time to figure out where to settle down and put roots and where I wanted to raise my family, my wife and I made the easiest decision ever, and we moved back to Eugene. And we came back, like I said, to put down roots. This is a community that I love. It's important to me to be part of the community. So in the 11 years that I've been back, I've thrown myself into volunteer service. I served 7 years on the city's budget committee, 4 as chair. I'm on a couple of nonprofit boards. I'm on finance committees. My professional background's in accounting, although I have the privilege to be a stay-at-home dad now. So I've done a lot in this community, and one of the things that I've done is that for the last 8 years, I've been co-chair of the Active Bethel Community Neighborhood Association, which I led the reactivation of, along with Ethan here, because we didn't have an active neighborhood association speaking out for residents. And so we do now. I'm very proud of what we've built up there. We've spent the last several years working really hard on a Bethel neighborhood plan with the city. That came to a presentation just yesterday to City Council and is continuing to move forward. We talk about what people in the neighborhood need, and it's economic development, it's public safety, but when we talk about economic development in the neighborhood with folks, it's not about things that do matter broadly, like how it's going to improve our overall economy. It's just having a job. So I think bringing that home at an individual level. Thank you.
Now we'll move to questions. Ty, if you wouldn't mind passing the mic down to John, he will begin this. And just a reminder, the closer and more directional you put the mic towards your mouth, it will work just a little bit better. So a reminder, these questions, you have 1 minute to answer these. So beginning with John, we will begin with economic development and overall business climate in Eugene. So John, what does a healthy business environment in Eugene look like to you? And as a city councilor, what specific actions would you prioritize to achieve it?
One minute to solve that problem. For me, as a small business owner, a healthy economy means that I've got a strong workforce. To me, that means hopefully having the people at the university that graduate our smartest and our best, a lot of which I employ while they're in school, stay in our community. I think that the regulatory environment that we have in Eugene could use some looking at. I think I've heard from other businesses that it's a challenge sometimes to maintain and grow their business in the city of Eugene with planning and permitting issues, and so I would love to find a way to streamline those. Working with our dedicated planning staff would be something that I would lead into.
You want me to repeat it?
No.
Yeah, oh,
Supposed to start. Hi. Sorry about that. So first of all, I think a thriving business needs a thriving community around it. One of the biggest things I think as a city councilor and a city can do is to ensure that the community itself is thriving and that the city is doing the things that it needs to be doing. Making sure our roads are good, making sure we have livability at a place where people want to stay, that they want to put down roots, they want to invest in our community, all those basic services that the city is supposed to provide. So just do your job. And then the second is I want us to find more targeted opportunities to invest in our business community. This is surely not my area of expertise. Not all counselors know everything about everything, and I rely on folks with more expertise to come to me with ideas, and we're starting to do better at that. So just listening and having more engagement, I think, is another thing that we need to do a little more job with our business community so they can share their expertise.
I think one of the biggest handicaps from talking to people that are getting permits, they run into obstacles where the inspectors find a problem, they're put on a 10-day clock to get it corrected. Permitting runs it all the way to the last day. They come back, get everything done, and then they run into another problem through permitting that puts them on like another 20-day clock. Long story short, it pushes the project back. You run into weather delays. You've got to add more. Let's say if you're going into the rainy season, you're going to have to add a lot more gravel, what have you, in order to get the job done. The other thing I'm really concerned about is, I believe there's a petition going around. That's part of the green tax, I think it is. All the corporations, businesses that make in excess of so much money, it's gonna be similar to what Portland has, but it's an astronomical amount of money that they're actually generating up there. I think they focused on, said something like 14 million. It turned into.
Could you ask the question one more time?
Absolutely. What does a healthy business environment in Eugene look like to you? And as a city councilor, what specific actions would you prioritize to achieve it?
One that is growing. And that's a really key part of this, I think. As I said before at the top, all living things are growing or dying back to life. And our community isn't growing the way it should. So I suppose you could say our local economy is dying in many ways, and we need to stop that. That's the first thing that council needs to do, in my opinion, is stop shooting itself in the economic foot. And we've been doing that for a while. We need to have a mindset of an economy that grows. And the importance of it is just for the sake of being able to afford the promises we've already made. We're $2 to $10 million shy for next year, and we know that already. Okay? When you do the math, that's an addition of about $250 million in assessed property value that we need to grow each year above what we were the year before in order to afford the promises we've made.
You know, I'm glad I'm in this part of the list to respond to this, because I can hear everybody else, where everyone else is coming from on this. One of the things that I want to be very clear about is that we need to be aggressive in our economic development profile. And what I mean by that is that we need to understand that our comparator cities across the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast are beating the hell out of us. And we cannot afford to lag behind anymore. We are in a national, regional, and global competitive environment. And if we are not competitive, we will fail. I go back to, you know, my favorite biblical verse. I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Proverbs 29:11, where there's no vision, the people perish.
Well, I appreciate a question that lets me just pick up from my last sentence, because what economic development really means when we're talking to people, when I'm talking on the doors out in my neighborhood, it's having a job, maybe having a second job, having a job that pays the bills, and something that kids have a job, that our kids have a job when they grow up, that there's opportunities, reasons for people to stay here after they graduate from the U of O. Then that's what maintains our community that we love so much. So without a thriving economic climate, we lose our community. It's jobs, it's amenities. In Bethel, like a huge part of that conversation about what we want in our neighborhood is just a few basic amenities of life. It's an almost purely residential neighborhood, and people want a coffee shop or one more restaurant, one that's maybe a little bit nicer than we have so far. And so economic development is critical. It's how we get there.
Greg, you mentioned the order. We will be changing the order per question. So Jennifer is going to be next. Continuing on fiscal matters, we will be discussing budgeting and priorities. We know the city has both grown in its budget and faced deficits in most budget cycles. So Jennifer, how do you balance investments in economic development with the immediate service needs, such as public safety or homelessness response, as well as the desire to grow other programs?
Yeah, so since I've been on council, at least in my experience, we've unfortunately never had a circumstance where we had extra money. So since I've been on council, it's always been making really hard choices. So when I balance things, you need to be willing to make targeted investments. Economic development is one of those areas. Council recently made some targeted investments in that area that's going to affect the budget, and that will mean, because we cannot go over, we can't have a deficit, we're going to have to cut somewhere. But I think it's worth it. You can't always concentrate on what's right in front of you in the short term, things that you need. Sometimes you need to invest in those long-term strategies and economic development, adding these staff that we did, and hopefully other things that will come along through those staff and the work that they do are those long-term investments that we need to, that might be hard to do now because we have to make cuts, but in the future, our children and our grandchildren, the folks that comes behind us, will be so glad that we did it now rather than waiting for later.
The question? How do you balance investments in economic development with the immediate service needs, such as public safety or homelessness response, as well as the desire to grow other programs?
I'm just going to be honest, I don't think we're going to be getting out of this predicament for the next 2-3 years. I think we're going to be stuck here for a while. I don't see any projects growing. I think we're lucky if we can hold on to what we have. I've got some ideas for how we can actually generate more revenue, but until then, it's going to take a while to get those suggestions on board. The other thing, with the proposal to hire 4 more people with the $800,000 that they want to pull out of the budget, it's kind of, my feeling is that I feel like we're reinventing the wheel with it. At one time, we had what was called Lane Metro. I'm sure a lot of you remember Jack Roberts, Bob Warren. I would hope that we would be willing to go back and look at that before we actually pull more money out of the budget for projects that people really want to keep floating. But like I said, the $800K feels to me like it's reinventing the wheel, and I hope that we would hold off on spending that money.
I'm sorry, could you ask that one more time?
Absolutely. How do you balance investments in economic development with the immediate service needs, such as public safety or homelessness response, as well as the desire to grow other programs?
Growing new programs will be an extreme challenge. I don't know that that is possible. We have about a 7 to 8% expense growth for operating the city every single year. And we're capped at a 3% growth for revenue with property taxes, which means that structural 4 or 5%, we are going backwards and in towards bankruptcy every year. So we need a difference of how we think about economic development and how we grow the economy of our city in order just to pay the bills. We will have to look at cost containment. I'm very excited about having a new city manager on board because she brings in new ideas from her work in Beaverton that I'm hopeful can apply and help us with the process of prioritization that we're going to have to do this spring. But it leads into the foreseeable future unless we alter the manner in which we pay for the things that we need.
I look at this a little bit differently than my colleagues do in the context that we have in this area 250,000 people within the metropolitan area. We have, give you an example, we have 4 parks departments. We have Lane County Parks, we have Willamette Lane, we have City of Eugene, we have River Road. That means we have 4 administrations in an area that we should probably have one unified administration. We've been trying to do that with the fire department for the last 13 years, and as Mike can attest to, that's not an easy lift. But it's a lift that I think that we may have to go to at some point. but we understand that as we repeat administrative processes across the region, then that's where we're losing money. And we need to change the way that we move forward with this.
Every single city department is currently underfunded relative to what the community expects from it. And that is the consequence of now a couple decades of steady and consistent cuts. Like Councilor Clark was saying, every year we bring in a little bit more money than the year before, and every year the cost to provide the same services in the same way increases faster than that revenue growth. So it turns into, if we want to provide the same services in the same way, we have to cut something from the budget every time. And at this point, we're running a very, very lean city budget for our current priority list. So at this stage, what we need is some serious community conversations. This is a decision that can't be made by 8 councilors by themselves. It has to be made by the community as a whole. We need as many voices at the table as possible, as many different perspectives, so that we can gather all that up together and really set what our true priorities as a community are, and then build a budget around that.
Tom, you'll be beginning this round. The closer the mic, the better. Oh, John hasn't gone yet. I apologize. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Well, for me, one of the things that I see as an eWeb commissioner is people get their eWeb bills, and we have to raise rates because our costs are going up. And I hear how we're struggling. When the budget talks come around, there's 2 things. There's program reductions or there's increases in revenue. Our community right now is not in a position for increasing revenue. When I say increasing revenue, that's taxes and fees. And when I hear people come to the podium as an eWeb commissioner and say, I'm having problems paying my lights and my water bill, now is not the time to look at new revenues. We have to look at where we can partner, like Greg said, and look at what this community feels it can afford and it prioritizes. So that's the conversation that I'm looking to dig into.
Okay, now, Tom, we're going to be doing round 3 of questions, focusing on homelessness and public safety. So we'll be addressing homelessness, which often requires balancing compassion with community expectations. So Tom, your question: what level of personal accountability do you believe is appropriate when it comes to behaviors such as compliance with our laws, public safety, or use of public spaces? And how should the city respond when those expectations are not met? And the closer the mic, the better.
Yeah, that actually feels like it's more than just one question, so I'm just going to go with, my experience goes back, I worked almost 6.5 years as a medic on Cahoots. I saw a lot of what the homeless folks are going through, people, how they came about. It's pretty traumatizing. The one big thing I saw, and I don't like it when I see that they want to cut back on people panhandling. It's hard for, when you see a person that says, I need a beer, they need a beer really for the next morning. I've seen too many times where people go into DTs, delirium alcohol withdrawal, and it can be, fatal. The other part of it is, there's some predatory people out there, and they will take other person's backpacks just for the money for their medications. It's a really broad question, a broad subject. So, and I don't think you can answer with platitudes.
You're right, it is a difficult question. We're a country and a community of laws. Everyone is responsible equally to comply with the law. And so it's an interesting question that way. but there are folks who have a harder time complying with it. And that's something that we should have the compassion to be able to work with as well to help those who need it. But I will say that the Chamber's done a wonderful job in having previously hosted a gentleman who is a University of Washington professor. He's a Husky, but he was pretty smart. Talking about his book that's titled Homelessness is a Housing Problem. And I believe that's absolutely correct based on my education about the issue. And we need a fairly robust effort to build new housing in our community as a part of an economic development strategy, but also to give a little bit of ease for to the homelessness problem that we face.
Okay, you're going to have to help me with this. Let's start at the top again.
Okay. What level of personal accountability do you believe is appropriate when it comes to behaviors such as compliance with our laws, public safety, or use of public spaces? And how should the city respond when those expectations are not met?
You know, I think we need to hold people all to the same standard. If we expect people not to walk around in our parks and use them as open toilets, that should be a standard that we need to maintain. It's the same thing across the board, whether a person has a mental health issue, a substance abuse issue, whatever, or they're just wilding out. The deal is that there are certain things that we should not tolerate in our society, and we need to hold people accountable for that. At the same time, we want to have compassion in getting people the help and services that they need. But understand this too. Other people who are walking down the street, going to get lunch or coffee, or whatever, have a right to do that without being harassed.
Yeah, personal accountability is very important. Everyone is bound by the same laws. Housing status doesn't affect whether or not you're allowed to harass or assault someone, any of that. At the same time, this is, like Councilor Clark said, a housing issue, and so I think community accountability is necessary too. If we want to see fewer homeless people in our community, we need homes for them to be in, and we don't have them right now. And that's because we dropped the ball on building enough housing to meet our needs, and we're working really hard and trying to turn that around. We're trying to ramp that production up, and I think we can get there, but it's going to take a lot of work to create a system that allows us to move people out of homelessness back into homes where they deserve to be.
Thank you. This is something that's close to my heart. As a recovering addict of 40 years, I know firsthand how difficult the path of recovery is. I believe that there are options that we have in our community to help our most vulnerable. We have a program of deflection that is new to our community, where a police officer now, if he encounters somebody downtown or in our public spaces, has the opportunity to take them to jail or to call a caseworker that will come out, take them, say, we have a place where you can sleep tonight. You will go into recovery. We'll have somebody that will help you move to treatment. We'll help you with your warrants. It's called the LEAD program. It's something that I've been leaning into for the last 6 months. It's a proven program that is graduating people and getting them on the road to recovery, and that's how we get people in our places safe.
Thank you. So in my day job, I work for community supported shelters. So I see people every day taking responsibility for their lives and their choices and and working towards a path to be in a better place. Many folks who are experiencing homelessness are not wanting to be where they are. They may have been partially responsible for the choices, but they know that there is a path somewhere better. And I think that's because here in Eugene, we're not just a leader in Oregon, we're a leader in the nation about how we're addressing homelessness. We have excellent programs here in Eugene, many of which do not have the funding they need to fully succeed. And as we were talking earlier, our housing crisis is just exponentially making that more difficult. So we have many of the tools that we need to help people hold themselves responsible and make good choices. And our job here at the city and our state and our federal level is to help fund those adequately.
We'll be beginning with Mike next. We'll be discussing the city's regulatory environment. So Mike, question for you. How do you determine whether a proposed regulation strikes the right balance between community benefit and economic impact? And how would you improve city engagement of businesses early in the policy development process?
Wow, that's a complicated question. In 1 minute, here we go. The biggest challenge that our city council faces, I believe, is that the majority sees their role as to guard against people being predatory in the business community. They look at the job of the government as to, in a regulatory fashion, to say, our job is to protect people from those evil guys. And that needs to change, fundamentally. So I hope you can all support candidates that don't see their job that way at our council. When I say I hope to see us making better decisions as we move forward, that's predominantly what I'm talking about. We need to stop seeing the role of council as to guard people against the evils of what the business community may do, and look at them as the partner that we need.
We're actually going to be going to Greg next.
Okay. I know I've only got 1 minute, but I'll just say one thing. 33 days. Why I say 33 days? You know what 33 days is? Does anybody in this room know what 33 days means? You know what it means in Springfield? You can get a building permit. You can't do that in Eugene right now. You haven't been able to do that in Eugene in years. When I came here 40 years ago, we were in the same boat. It would take you 2 months, 3 months, 6 months just to get a permit to build a deck on the back of your house. Until we start taking away regulations that make no sense, we're going to continue to have the same struggles that we have with being able to alter our properties and do things that we want to do with them.
So how you evaluate whether a regulation makes sense? You have to understand what impact it's going to have. Both, if someone's proposing regulation, they have some sort of goal in mind. You need metrics that tell you, is it actually achieving that goal? Is it helping with what you're concerned about or not? Because a lot of times it might sound like a good idea, but not really actually achieve what it's trying to do. And you need to really understand what those costs are. You need to have those conversations with the business community, bring them into the fold on what impact will this have? What's this going to do to how you run your business? And the details are outside the scope of the 1 minute, but you need to look comprehensively, not just at the concept, not just at the sort of ideal or the platitude of it, but what will that regulation really ultimately mean, and make your decision from there.
Thank you. One of the things that I would like to do if I was at City Council would be to direct staff to engage with our, not just our business community, but our community as a whole on the regulations that already exist. You know, when we put new regulations in there, we have laudable goals for them. Let's make sure those goals are being achieved. And if they're not, it's time to look back and say, this has not been done correctly, or it's not achieving the goals that we thought we were going to achieve with this. I've seen that in knocking on doors in my neighborhood with some of the impacts of House Bill 2001. And I think we can look at that and say, did we do this the right way? Are there ways that we can do it better? But there's a lot of things in our community that people in this room and throughout the community can stand up and say, this isn't achieving the goal that we want. And I think a look back is something that is needed at this time.
Yeah, thanks. I think when we're looking at how do we balance things, we're starting with a problem. We're starting with something we're trying to achieve with a regulation, and oftentimes that can be very emotional, right? We're, clean air, clean water, protecting people. These are very emotional things, and so it's important to make sure we're really doing data-driven processes. So you're trying to take some of that, not all of the emotion, these are things we should care about, but you're taking some of that emotion out so you can get down to the facts and the data that is available to you to be able to make sure that the thing that you are putting into place is actually trying to achieve that problem. And then I'll agree with John, then you need to check back and make sure it actually did, because mistakes can be made, and that's all right. That's why we have a government to go back and recheck and make sure we're making the decisions that we need to be making and making adjustments along the way. And then finally, just making sure you're talking to experts. Our community.
I'm going to be honest with you all. What I know in reference to permitting, what have you, here in Eugene is just a little bit I shared with you earlier. And the folks up here have a better grasp of it. My background, though, in regulatory is from when I worked at Weyerhaeuser in the Corps of Engineers. The work that the Weyerhaeuser has to do to monitor discharges is just insane. I mean, they have to monitor within a minute of the discharges to the stacks. The Corps of Engineers, we had to be really on top of it for oil spills. Everybody downstream is going to be impacted by any kind of a bit of an oil spill, like the ones they had up on the Columbia. We're talking about tens of thousands of gallons of oil. So I just, there are some people think some of those regulations are burdensome, but some of them are necessary. My belief is that get on to the council, I would just really try to stay on top of regulation I think would be a detriment to our local businesses and just not make it too burdensome.
Before we move to the next question, I do want to remind everyone that you do have those cards on your table. So if you'd like to write your own question, we have 2 more before Tiffany will be going around and picking them up. So our next question, elected officials often balancing competing priorities. So, Greg, we will begin with you. When making difficult policy decisions, how do you determine which residents' voices carry the most weight when their priorities conflict? And describe how you approach decisions when there are competing perspectives from different stakeholder groups.
I try to take each and every situation, problem, challenge that we have at City Council on its own merit. And that's the way that I look at these issues and these problems. I tried not to be steeped in one set of political dogma versus the other. I'm what you would call the classic moderate because I'm willing to listen to all sides of an issue, whether they be far left, whether they be far right. You can always get a nugget of truth out of most arguments that are made out there. And I see this as, the sausage-making factory that it is. Not everything is going to be perfect, but if you're going to make a good sausage link, you better be ready to put some spice in that sucker. So, yeah.
Ty will be next.
It takes as many perspectives as you can possibly get. You need all the information to make a good decision. So that means leaving the council chambers, because if you listen to just public comment, you're never going to get every perspective. You're going to find one issue that people decide to show up for, but there's always other perspectives when you get out into the community and talk to other people who weren't there. So that is the biggest piece. You have to be in order to make these decisions right, in order to have all the information you need to synthesize different perspectives, find common ground. You need to know what everyone in the community is thinking. You need to be out and active and present, talking to people all the time, building coalitions of different perspectives, and everything you can do to bring as many voices to that table as possible.
John will be going next. Sorry, rotate. Yeah, John will be going next.
Thank you. Greg, I'll take that sausage and make some nice pasta with it. So for me, data is very important to this. Listening to the whole community is another one. As an eWeb commissioner, I've had to make difficult decisions. We made the decision to take the Lieberg Dam and tear it down because that was the right decision. It impacted a lot of people upriver. There were a lot of people that were not happy with that decision. There were other people that were supportive of that decision. Hard decisions have to be made by policymakers. I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to listen to people and make the best decision for my ward and for my community as a whole. And sometimes that's going to be making people mad, but other times I've got to look at the community as a whole, and that's what I will do as a city councilor.
Thanks. So I've never been involved with an issue that didn't have 2 or more sides. There's always, usually like 3 or 4. We have a diverse community and we have diverse opinions. And so there's always going to be folks who have a different opinion from whoever was the last person you spoke to. I think it's important to go out and find those voices that tend to be underrepresented in who comes forward on their own to engage. We have to go out and be where people are, meet them where they are. But I also think it's important to remember who's most affected by the decision you're making, the decision that's in front of you, right? There's often someone who will be disproportionately affected than someone else, and getting that viewpoint from those people, I think, is extremely important because they're the ones that will deal with that decision the most. And that can vary from decision to decision, so you're always trying to connect with different groups of people. But that's the job, and spending time doing that is very important.
My experience goes back to when I was going to Lane. I was on budget committee, and then with the work I did as a shop steward, union rep, learned pretty quick that you really have to go out and get input from everybody. If you find out later that somebody feels they were not included in the discussion, they're going to hold that spite for a long time and remind you. It's better to go out and get as much information, input, direction as you can before you make the decision. I think that's the best route to go, and to me, I believe that our counselors have been doing that. I think they've been doing a great job. I appreciate the work they do.
Everyone approaches this work differently, but from my point of view, you steer towards a holistic win-win approach. I tend to be a pragmatic guy rather than an ideological person. Certainly, the first rule of government is to protect people's individual rights. But when we're looking for the best answer to a conflict decision, I think it's always best to involve as many people as possible in that decision and have as many potential answers and directions as possible and steer for the answer that hurts the largest number of people the least. I don't know if there's a better way to say that, but thank you.
And we will be beginning the next round with Ty. And this is our last round of questions before the audience questions. We will be discussing things related to experience and perspective. Ty, how has your professional or community experience shared your understanding of the role businesses play in a thriving community?
So my professional background is in accounting, and my community experience is in primarily focusing on the neighborhood level at what do people in my neighborhood want, and in both cases, that's businesses. That is absolutely where our needs are, especially like just small local businesses that provide the amenities that we're missing in our neighborhood. That's what people talk about at the Ward 6 level. At the city level, focusing on the budget, I've also seen the big picture. I've seen where we do not have a sufficient tax base. It's not growing fast enough, and without that, we can't provide the services that the city is supposed to be providing. So at every level, this is just a fundamental piece baked into how our city works or doesn't.
We're going to pass it down to John now. A lot of bait and switching happening.
Well, I think my experience as a small business owner is a valuable voice that we need on city council. You know, when they printed up my name tag today, it had La Perla Pizzeria on it. So I know the hardships of running small businesses, successful ones and ones that had to close. So having that perspective and how our government interacts with the people who are employing us here in our city is a voice that I think is needed on city council.
Yeah, thanks. So as a neighborhood leader, I got the opportunity to speak to people all the time about their close neighborhood, right? The things, the people and the businesses that were around them. And I often would hear how important it was to them to have things close to where they live, to have businesses that they could go to. Especially, folks were always so proud of local businesses and the ones that were connected to their neighborhoods, and they would go out of their way to be able to go and to enjoy those close businesses. So I think having those in-community business opportunities for people is so important. And then I guess that's all I'm going to say.
How has your professional or community experience shaped your understanding of the role businesses play in a thriving community?
The one thing for me I've learned over the years is that different businesses actually contribute more than people actually imagine. In some cases where one FTE at a business can actually generate 2 to 3 other FTEs in different corresponding businesses. The other thing too, if you want to take a look at Atlas Cylinders, Parker Hannifin, they actually rolled out other people from the work that created businesses, although they competed, but in a different market or a different way. The other one, LJ, I think it was LJ that was down in CV Loop. They rolled out a lot of great equipment, a lot of jobs, but they also created other businesses like Peterson and that. I don't think people really grasp how much all those FTEs put out back into our community. I wish that message could be conveyed better.
A thriving and successful local economy is the backbone of any good community. And I've seen that close at hand. I was a small business owner for 25 years in our community, and also a volunteer in a whole list of nonprofits and and service organizations that rely on the business community for them to be able to succeed. There are a lot of efforts in our community specifically that deal with trying to solve smaller problems here and there. I had an experience to volunteer as a member of what was called the Active 2030 Club, where we would spend the entire year trying to raise money to help children's charities in our county. And you don't fix huge problems, but you fix small ones close up. And a thriving business community is the only way where those kind of organizations succeed in any community.
One of the things that has held us back for many years is the fact that the city of Eugene has not had an economic development commission. We have relied on the Metro Partnership over the years. We've relied on Lane County representing us over the years. But the bottom line is people don't come to this area because Lane County is great, or Springfield is great, or Cottage Grove is great. They come here for Eugene. And we have a long history of not standing up for our own community. This is the time when we need to, because we have to have a concerted effort around economic development. It's one of the things that I proposed when we put together the TAG group during the last budget negotiations. And I'll stop at that. But no, we need to start swinging for Eugene.
Okay, so to keep the fairness, we'll have John begin with these questions. Okay, first question. What criteria would you use to determine which services to maintain, reduce, or expand?
Data. And-
Which criteria would you
No,
use?
I heard that. I said
Oh.
data was what I said.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you said say it again.
No. I would start with data. I would also look at areas where there may be partnerships. Somebody's talked about that earlier. If there's an opportunity for partnerships to help maintain a service that we may not be able to afford. And then prioritization is something, it's a community voice that I would want to hear from. One person's going to say the pools, one person's going to say the dogs, one person's going to say the police, one person's going to say the fire. And balancing those needs is a community conversation, and it's also a community conversation as to which ones we can do without. And I think that that's a conversation that I'm looking forward to leaning into.
Thanks. I get to say I agree with everything John just said. But also, I think it's really important for us to look at how the different departments and the different programs interconnect with each other. I think it's easy to make a budget decision that could have an unintended negative effect somewhere else, because our departments, while they are separated, they're also very interconnected in the work that they do. And we want them to be doing that, because that does, we don't want them duplicating services. We want our staff to be working together and doing projects together. And so making sure that as we're making these priority lists and we're working with our community and we're looking at data and doing all those things, we're also going back and making sure that those decisions are not going to have effects in other departments. If we cut here, it's not going to make something else not function properly.
I think we need to have the realization that if we're talking about reduction in force FTEs, it's not going to happen immediately. It's probably going to take at least a minimum 1 year. I think the other thing we need to review are the departments that have had to take the most cuts over the years. I'm sure there's positions that have in the field. I'm sure there's some redundancy within the departments that we could look at consolidating. When I was at Weyerhaeuser, I'm not sure how many of you might be familiar with the Kaizen continuum improvement. We went through and did the whole mill where we looked at everybody's position. A lot of people hated the union for it, but had to do it. I mean, it's just we had to survive. I think within the first half year, 6 months, we only did a portion of the departments within the whole mill, and we saved, we actually increased production $2.5 million in that first 6 months. So like I say, I'm sure there's redundancy, people have already been impacted, but I don't think we should just go, I think we need to go in with a scalpel and just be really surgical about it, because, I mean, if we shut down a pool without...
Time is up, Tom, sorry. Yes.
Creativity and innovation is one thing that we need to focus on when it comes to the conflict of potential budget clashes in the future. Another thing I think that's important is that different areas of our community tend to have different priorities depending on what that particular city service is. A city councilor's job is to be the best representative and best advocate that they can for the people that they represent, which first and foremost is the people within their ward who may have stronger feelings about one particular city service than another. Knowing that is a big part of the job, knowing what your constituents feel are the priorities of our community, and then trying to do the best you can to be pragmatic, to be innovative in the process, but at the same time being able to advocate for those people that you represent.
My approach is pretty clear. Public safety, public works, and infrastructure. We are solely behind, at least by $100 million, on projects in this city that need to be fixed, need to be corrected, sidewalks, streets, all of that. And every few years, we go to a bond measure to relieve some of that. We have other issues that we have to grapple with as well. We have not invested in our fire department in nearly 40 years, and we still need to have major investments in police, as well as parks, rec, and other services in the library. We have a library levy out that's out now that we are looking for more money. But at some point, we're going to have to do things differently in terms of service delivery and consolidation of administrative services.
My criteria for prioritization is always going to be community benefit. What maximizes community benefit? Obviously, measuring that is the trick, but that's where the conversations come in. And another piece about the prioritization conversation that I want to emphasize is it doesn't have to be a binary of which programs do we need and which ones do we not, which program would we eliminate or keep. There's also there's room to talk about what level of service do we want from each of our existing programs, because we don't have any programs that we just don't need. There's a reason we do all the things we do, but there is room to review what level of service do we need in order to serve the community, in order to be a place that people want to live. What level of each service makes this a place that we can recruit workers, recruit people to move here, and build that infrastructure that allows a thriving economy.
Ty, if you'd like to pass it to Jennifer. Jennifer, this is a bit longer question. A vibrant downtown is a primary factor in where young professionals choose to settle. Beyond the basic safety measures, what is your vision for a 24/7 downtown? Specifically, how will you support the development of more market-rate residential units and retail options that make downtown a destination rather than just a pass-through?
Yeah, thanks. So when I got on council, being from the North Eugene, I didn't fully understand how important our downtown is. That's one of the things that I've really learned being on council, is how important it is to invest in our downtown, even if you're not someone who spends a lot of time down there, although I do. But I think the council has made some good progress in supporting our downtown, adding, our accelerated MUPD and other programs that are trying to get more housing down there. And that's something we need to continue to do. And I see that, our investment in these new economic development positions and all the different strategies we're starting to support right now is really leading towards that, is finding those strategic ways to target our downtown and make investments in our downtown, but also in our other areas that are important. Our downtown is important, but we can't do it in exclusion of all of the other areas of our city, and we need to also make investments there.
I don't think a 24/7 kind of a environment is actually viable downtown. It would take a lot of imagination to create an environment where people want to be down there at 1 in the morning after the bars close. I try to go through the downtown in the mornings around 5:36 just for shits and giggles, and I engage with some of the folks that are camped out, and it's not for lack of services. It's just that's where they end their days sometimes. And I don't know if we need to put something out closer than the Mission or what have you. Those folks need help, and I think if we can find some help for them or something even in a closer vicinity to where they are when I'm done for the day. I think that would be the first start, the first step to do that. And anyway.
Could you ask the question one more time?
A vibrant downtown is a primary factor in where young professionals choose to settle. Beyond basic safety measures, what is your vision for a 24/7 downtown? Specifically, how will you support the development of more market rate residential units and retail options that make downtown a destination rather than just a pass-through?
Yeah, that last part is really the key. I would also push back on the idea of whether or not our goal ought to be a 24/7 downtown. I suspect that we're more accurately still in a place where we're a town trying really hard to be a city, and we're still experiencing the growing pains that come between a town trying to become a city. And I can remember a conversation I had with former Mayor Jim Torrey back in the 90s, where he said, until we have people living in upstairs in buildings all throughout downtown, our downtown will never really thrive. And I agreed with him at the time. And we haven't built any market rate housing downtown since. And that's really the key. We have to be able, there's the stop, we have to be able to build a great deal more market rate housing in our downtown.
I think that it's difficult to try to envision a downtown that is a 24/7 thriving entity like New York City is, or some other of the global capitals of the world. We're not just built that way. One of the things I think we need to understand is that right now, and I've been here for 40 years, Eugene is a college town on steroids. We think bigger than what we are, and we haven't really defined where we're going to be. Can you imagine where Eugene is going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What are we going to look like? What is the community going to look like? What is the mix of people going to look like? And I'll stop with that.
Well, touting the importance of downtown probably isn't going to win me too many votes in Ward 6. Every time there's another investment in downtown, people in Bethel actually tend to get pretty upset that it's more focus on something other than our neighborhood. And I want to acknowledge that perspective, but yes, a thriving downtown is nevertheless critical to a successful city. And in particular, I really appreciate that the question focuses on attracting and retaining young professionals and housing downtown. And that is the answer to how do we envision a downtown that is active, that is not a pass-through, is for people to live there, that want to be there, and that is their community, making downtown not just a place with some shops, but a place that is fundamentally where a lot of folks in our community live, which means we need a lot of living space downtown. Build more housing, please.
Great. I am super excited about our downtown. I think we're at a precipice right now. We've got a lot of people rowing in the same direction. We've got our chamber with Katie Wilgus, dedicated to revitalizing downtown. We've got the president of the University of Oregon with the Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor, as engaged of a university president in our community that I've seen in years. That partnership is something that is absolutely inspiring. We also have, we've got actually money to do things down there. The city council did an urban renewal plan and freed up money that is going to be able to help revitalize our downtown. We're looking at a project at the farmers market. I am bullish on downtown, and that's what we need from our city council, is people and everybody in this room. We need cheerleaders for our community. Let's be a place that you can do things.
Tom, you will begin this next question. Jennifer, you already answered that, correct? I thought we started with you. Okay, I believe that I'm reading this handwriting correctly. The city is only 50% of meeting their 2030 climate recovery goals. How do you foresee the city achieving this goal, and where is the financing coming from?
Not entirely clear where the financing is coming from, but the one thing I have concerns about, and we talked about it before, is the petition that's going around where they think it's going to help bring in revenue for it. And I tried touching upon it earlier. The city of Portland has something similar. I'm not sure what the proper title is. It's like a green tax bill. I think they only wanted to generate 14. Don't hold me on the quote. I think it was like 14, but it sounds like it's more like 100 million that they brought in. I think we should be cautionary into what we try to set for our goals, because it's just going to impact I think it's the businesses mostly, and not the residents. And that something like that's just going to put up huge red flags. I mean, if I was a business looking to want to relocate here, I think I'd have second thoughts. Maybe look someplace like next door.
Yeah, it'll go in that order.
Could you ask the question one more time?
Absolutely. The city is only 50% of meeting their 2030 climate recovery goals. How do you foresee the city achieving this goal, and where's the financing coming from?
I'm not sure we will. Right now, we spend somewhere between $50,000 to $75,000 a year buying carbon credits. Money we send intentionally, tax money we send out of the community to further projects that have an effect on reducing carbon in our atmosphere in other communities that we buy as a part of this ordinance. The very first thing that we need to do is look towards how we create local carbon credits that can be purchased locally rather than regionally with the money we're already spending, that help incentivize the growth of local efforts and fund local work that is already being done with the money we're already spending, rather than sending it out of our community. That, to me, should be a priority with our climate program.
I think that we became a little more ambitious with our climate program than what we could realistically achieve in the time period that we set it out. So one of the benchmarks is 2030. Again, we have a situation, I'll give you the classic situation that we have right now with our transit agency. Most of the electric buses that LTD had has now been sold to Southern California. Reason being is because those buses were not prepared to perform in this environment. And so what LTD is running now is what they've been running, which is clean diesel. Some of the technologies that we are expecting to catch up and spark the changes that we want in our environmental profile have not caught up yet. So I'll stop with that. It's a more complicated question, but there you go.
Well, I'm afraid a lot of the answer is in the question because it points out that we've only gotten 50% of the way there, and that's not even a linear progression because we've already done a lot of the easier things that could be done. We've hit the low-hanging fruit. There's, I'm afraid, no realistic way to fully meet the targets of the Climate Recovery Ordinance without dramatically more investment, and there's not an answer to where we would get funding for that. The answer is we don't have funding for that. So we will continue to do the best we can and make progress. We can try to get that 50% to a higher number. It's not going to be 100. We can just do the best we can at this point.
This is an issue that we've been dealing with as an EWEB commissioner. We are a big player in this conversation. EWEB had internal 2030 climate goals just like the city of Eugene does. We met our 2030 goals last year. There is a path forward. With good policy making and the experience that I've learned by helping set that policy with my fellow commissioners, I think I can bring some of that knowledge to the city council. Climate is an existential threat to our community, and we need to hit those goals by 2030. It is possible. I reject the scenario that it's not possible because I've seen it done in our community at an agency that may not be quite as big as the city of Eugene, but it's a large agency, so I've seen that it can be done. So let's work towards that.
Yeah, thanks. Goals are important. They help us, show our way. They help us with planning, but that doesn't mean they can't be adjusted. And, many of our climate goals, in my opinion, were based on assuming that our state and federal government would be supportive and in different ways able to give incentives and support to local governments that maybe looks like is probably not going to be happening, at least in the short term. So that's okay. When if any goals, you make adjustments and you keep moving forward. What is important to me as a city councilor is that we identify that these are important things to us. These are priorities, and we continue to make advancements and look for opportunities, whether those are short-term, like those low-hanging fruit type items, or if these are long-term things that we need to start and do incrementally. It's just we can't drop the ball. We have to continue to be making advancements in these areas because our community has told us it's important. We know it's important.
Mike, we will be doing closing statements now, beginning with you. So every candidate has 1 minute and 30 seconds to share any final thoughts with the audience.
Thank you all for being here, for helping with the questions, for being a part of this conversation. I think our community's future is important. That's why I want to serve. I think all of us feel that way. And it's going to take all of us working towards that reality to make it happen. The council is a big part of the decisions and the direction our community makes. But certainly it's the participation of all of you that matters most in whether or not we have, as I said earlier, a culture of growth and economic progress in our community or whether or not we don't. So I personally want to be grateful for all of you and all of your efforts. I'm hoping to be able to serve again. I have two opponents in my campaign because apparently just one wasn't enough. I don't know. So anyone who would like to be helpful to that effort and approves of what they've heard from me today, please make contact with me, electmikeclark.com or otherwise, and I would love to have your help and support. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Is this now? It's working. I got to talk into it, right? So, again, thank you for having me this morning, for having this forum, for all of us to talk about these issues that are confronting our city and continue to confront our city. Some of them are long-term issues that we have been grappling with for many years, and will not go away tomorrow, but there are other issues that we can resolve. And as we work together as counselors, I'm very sure that we will solve a lot of the concerns and issues that we have. Is it going to be overnight? No, but it will happen with us working together and with us bringing all of the community together to work on these issues. I appreciate that my opponent Ty is running. Ty told you we go all the way back to baseball coaching about 25 years ago, and we will continue to work together regardless of whether I'm reelected or Ty is elected. So we are definitely committed to Bethel and committed to Eugene.
Absolutely. I really, really appreciate everyone here today, the energy, the enthusiasm in this room. This is what we need. This is what it takes. We need to do this together as a community. That's where I come from, where my background is just trying to always build community, always trying to bring in as many voices as possible. And I love seeing so many voices show up so early in the morning. This is a really fabulous event, and I appreciate being able to be here. If you're interested in anything you've heard from me, want to learn more, my website's togetherwithty.com. I put that belief right into my campaign slogan, and what I'm building around is I think we need to do all of this together, and certainly that'll include Greg and I working together no matter how the race turns out, as we have been doing for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Despite all that's happening in our world, I'm an optimist at heart. I believe Eugene's best days are in front of us, and I'm excited to put my experience to work to go that way. I'm more interested in finding common ground than in what divides us. And as a city councilor, that's something that I really want to lean into. Collaboration is one of my core values. Another thing that is in my DNA is service. You know, I've lived in the service industry for the last 40 years. And so for me, sitting on city council is another form of service. It's service to my community. I may be able to serve you a good plate of pasta, but I think I can also serve you a better Eugene. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I want a community where we can say yes and be excited about moving forward instead of dividing and conquering. So that's where I'm at. My website's John for Eugene. Be happy to listen and talk to anybody that's out there and wants to hear from me. I'm excited about this position, and I am always willing to learn. That's something, all of the experience that I've had were learning experiences, and I've grown from every one of them. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope that all of you, like me, will see this as more than just a campaign a campaign opportunity, that this is really a chance for us to all hear from each other and to learn about each other and have a better connection going forward. It has been a privilege to be a city councilor in Eugene. It's something that is very unique and an opportunity to be able to serve your neighbors and to really see the impacts of the work you do. You know, Eugene faces real challenges, but we have incredible strengths as well. We are creative, we are compassionate, and from what I've seen, many of us believe that collective action really can make a difference when we come together. And that's what we need to lean in on and really strengthen those relationships and do that work. And I'm committed to that work. I believe that all of us together really can make a city where we all feel seen and we all feel hopeful about the future. So thank you all for being here tonight. It's not night, it is definitely morning.
First off, I want to say thank you for the invite here today. In all my years of living in Eugene, this is a situation or occasion I never envisioned being in front of. I mean, it's been a pleasure. It's been a really great learning experience for me. I want to say thank you, Brittany. I've known Brittany just for a little bit through the Cal Young Neighborhood Association, but again, thank you. It's been a great opportunity to be here. I really appreciate it. The first time I actually thought about running for an office was when Mike's first year as a council member, and I believe Mayor Obie was mayor then. And yes, sir. It was I shadowed the council for a month, and I said, yeah, no way, and no. But you know, the thing I was trying to bring out before was with the work I did in the union, getting Ag Secretary Glickman out here. I'll touch on that real quick. They actually believe that we can make 2x4s, plywood, particle board in a paper mill. All we could make there was liner board. We got Glickman out here for 2 days, and he went through the whole Northwest, and then that's what I think is going to have to happen here. Everybody's going to have to voice, you know, put a voice to what their needs are, establish their priorities, and be willing to give up something. And I really feel honored the effort. I mean, these guys are great. I just like love them to tears, and I think we're really fortunate to have them. And thank you guys for letting me share this space with you guys. It's been fun.
All right, well, we want to thank all of our candidates for participating today and respecting those strict time constraints. I'm sure you guys wanted to talk a little bit more about specific topics. Also, thank you so much for the audience participation, as well as for OB companies for hosting, so thank you so much. The Eugene Chamber is committed to supporting a local strong economy and informed civic participation, so we encourage everyone to stay engaged, communicate, and most importantly, vote. So thank you all so much for being here today, and have a great day.